Thank you, thank you. How are y'all doing today? Great, great. First day at UMS, I'm super excited. This is also my first UMS, which is super dope. So super excited to be here with y'all. My name's Xavier Goche, and I'm actually a Youth on Record fellow, as well as a CEO of an art collective out here called Black Kosher. And the entire goal of Black Kosher is to provide opportunities for local young artists, for them to be able to share their art in spaces without having to use a pay-to-play system. So I do a lot of the cold calling, the cold emailing these venues and saying, hey, I have this dope show that I want to do with like 5 artists, 10 artists on a bill. And then they say, cool, go ahead and get all that together. And then I just go through and I handpick artists who I'm really close friends with or who are under my art collective, specifically because we want to create community and we want to create opportunities for young artists to be able to thrive out here, right? I think that's kind of Denver's superpower, is that our music scene is so diverse and so ingenuitive that there's so many opportunities and spaces for these young artists to go into. So yeah, my name's Xavier, and sorry, let me pull up my notes real quick. We got started really fast. But yeah, welcome to Impact Days 2024. Thank you so much for being part of our community. Our panel today is called The Live Market, what venues look for in up-and-coming artists. So whether you're a seasoned musician or just starting out, this session is packed with valuable information to help you stand out from the crowd and secure your spot in the local music scene out here. And without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. And since we are doing it hot seat style, I will introduce you guys one at a time. So I'll have one of you come up right now, and then as your time is up, then I'll have the next one come up. Does that work with y'all? Cool, great. So first up, we have Clarissa. Perfect. Cool, all right, cool. I wanted to make sure I pronounced that correctly. Clarissa Chaput? Chapit. Ah, damn, I was so close. CC? Yeah. Okay, great. That's a great nickname. So yeah, Clarissa, with over 20 years of experience in the food and beverage industry, Clarissa moved to Denver in 2018 and helped open Low High's Lady Jane. While originally from Boston, they've been able to make waves in the Mile High as the director of programming for Two Moons Music Hall since 2023. I actually just saw a show over there 2 weekends ago. It was the Heal series with Jazzy and Brooklyn. Yeah, amazing show. If y'all haven't seen it, definitely go over there. Super dope venue. And Clarissa hit the ground running and has successfully booked over 200 shows with both up-and-coming artists and well-established artists. So, Clarissa, I just want to say thank you for being here.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So our first question is, can you describe a bit about what your job is in day-to-day?
Yeah, there we go. So because we are a cocktail bar and music venue, my day-to-day goes everything from admin all the way to helping front of the house, being extra hands. So I try to keep as organized as possible. I have like my first day where I'm manager meetings, doing immediate email. Sorry, I'm a little nervous going first. I apologize, guys.
Give her a round of applause. Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, and then I also then on Wednesdays, I try to make all my meetings with my artists, either that Thursday or the following Thursday. I do a lot of phone call meetings in person. Love in-person meetings so you can get to see the space and the venue and get a feel for it. I also have a day where I just listen to music. I go through all the inquiries. I listen to the music samples that I get sent. And then Friday and Saturday nights, I actually engineer all the DJs. That was a lovely learning experience, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And then Sundays, I am a front of house manager.
Nice. That sounds like a really busy week.
It is. Lots of hats, but it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Can you talk a little bit more about your first job in the music industry?
This one.
Yeah.
My background is mostly in food and beverage, bartending, director of operations, running programs behind the bar, GM. Did it for about 20 years. There's a lot of nice overflow with networking and just knowing how to talk to people. Keeping organized is another great thing that came from that.
And with the music industry, it's definitely been changing over time. And as this being your first job in the music industry, you've done this for a few years now. from the emergence of social media to the dominance of streaming and the influence of TikTok being put on the music industry, how has your work changed at all, and how have you maybe seen that change in this short amount of time?
Well, because I'm so new to it, that's the only experience I've had with social media, TikToks, people having multiple Instagrams, YouTubes. I just think that it's such great access because we get to know artists like through and through. So I definitely recommend utilizing every platform they possibly can without overextending yourself.
When it comes to like you as a talent buyer and looking at these Instagrams and these TikToks, is there anything that is like a green light versus a red light for someone's account or for someone's content? Can you have too much of something, too little of something?
I think mostly for Instagrams, separating your musical self from your personal self is a really great idea. When I look at your Instagram, I want to see like your shows and like your personality as well. Obviously, you don't want it just your music, but to be able to just filter through the whole thing and know that that's your musical identity, that's a lot easier. TikToks, I would say about the same thing, and just like keep your algorithm also the same because we all know algorithms are a little weird right now, and at least if you have your musical self separated from your personal self, you'll go up into all the algorithms for venues. I have my own personal one, and then I also have my professional one. My professional one is all music.
Okay, great. I already do that, so that's perfect to hear. So yeah, if you don't follow me already, follow me at the official QI on Instagram. But yeah, with you having booked over 200 shows of well-established artists and up-and-coming artists, obviously you've seen what works and what doesn't work for young artists in this city. So what would you say is the thing, or what's a piece of advice that you would give up-and-coming artists that are trying to build rapport or trying to build relationships with these local venues?
I would recommend visiting the venue, kind of getting the vibe and the feel. It gives you kind of the idea if it's going to be a good fit, what to come with when you cold call the venue. When that email comes in, I definitely look for organization, really selling yourself, introducing your bandmates if you have bandmates, so I get to know who's on your band and I can look them up as well. Having music samples, having your Instagram, having your TikTok attached to it. Meet photographers through your networking, have really good photos of yourselves performing, and look like you're having fun in your photos too, because I get a lot of headshots where people don't look happy. So we want to use that for our promotion and our events calendar, so you want to look like your best selves.
Nice. And I feel like you really touched on this for the most part in that last question. But are there any other effective strategies when it comes to approaching venues as an independent artist?
Yeah, my biggest thing is definitely organization and really selling yourself. You know you're a good artist, right? You want to believe in yourself, so make that exude through however, if you approach me in person or if it's through an email, just like really sell yourself and know who you are and know your worth as well.
And on the point of selling yourself, would you prefer an artist have a booking agent kind of reach out to you instead? Do you think a booking agent can kind of speak to them better, or would you prefer the artist reach out personally?
Both has worked out for me. Just make sure your booking agent is really working well for you, making sure that they're communicating on like really well, and selling you as who you are and not what they think the venue is going to want to hear. I probably have worked with booking agents about 5% of the time. 95% of the time, I'm working directly with artists.
Is that just because of the kind of inquiries that you're getting, or okay? Great.
Yeah, it's basically based on percentages.
Okay, cool. That also answers my last question. How often do you work with personal artists versus third-party booking? So yeah.
I've worked with a promoter once,
Oh, wow.
but I don't get many inquiries from them, so I think that's just all it is.
Cool. And real quick, on a scale of 1 to 5, we'll just run through these quick little key points real quick. How important are these things when it comes to booking or considering booking an act at Two Moons? Spotify plays slash streaming numbers.
I would say 2.5. It's always nice to hear a studio version, but getting that time and, expenses, like I understand as artists who are like brand new, probably don't have the access. So it's really nice to hear studio versions, but it's not always the end all be all.
Great. Production quality.
Again, if, unfortunately, live versions on YouTube that are coming from an iPhone, it's not the greatest sound quality, but if you have like at least like I would say 2 to 3, you can kind of get an idea. Again, like studio production, like if you get your stuff on Spotify, that's awesome. So.
And on the note, we'll go to the other points as well. But on that note of it being okay to have studio versions, but like you wanting to hear that live sound, but also still keeping the quality as well. How receptive are you to artists sending in their live videos from past shows and things like that over sending things like their metrics for Spotify and stuff like that?
I accept both. I mean, one's not going to be more important than the other. You can tell when it's a live stream or a live video, like what kind of, product they're using. It's most likely your friend recording you. So I wouldn't use that like, oh, they sound not great, because it's just acoustics, unfortunately, through an iPhone.
Yeah, okay, great. An EPK on a scale of 1 to 5. EPK, electronic press kit.
I love a great EPK. I would rate that probably a 4. It's just such an easy way to go into a nice folder and see your photos, see your live music. I love accolades as well. If you have like shared a stage with somebody or like got a song picked up by somebody, that's such a great thing to see as well. I personally love organization from an email and just being able to tell who you are almost right away.
Great. Other venues that they may have played at before?
I would say about a high 3, almost 4. Experience is always great. I think Two Moons is a really great first stage for a lot of people to be on. So it's nice to know if they played another venue, and if I have people that work there and networked with, I can always ask. But again, like if it's your first show, I'm excited to have you.
Does that leverage an artist more at all when it comes to your consideration?
When it comes to experience, yes. But if you are also like playing a ton of venues, maybe in a month, it does make me a little hesitant because your followers might not come to every show. Obviously, you want to get your name out and you want to obviously make some money too, which is really nice. But if you are like planning with intention at certain venues with certain time limits in between, I think that's probably beneficial.
Great. And then this last one kind of goes in with EPK a little bit, but in email pitch, how, on a scale of 1 to 5, like how important is how the email pitch is presented, what's featured in it, all that kind of stuff?
To me, it's a 5. I do receive a good handful of emails that are unfortunately, there's no point of contact. There's maybe 2 sentences. It's just like a link to their Instagram. So it's a lot of digging on my part. I'm willing to do the work, but as we get busier, it might be, the no as opposed to a yes, which is, like I said, mention your band members, really know your genre, and describe to me like what it is that you're going to bring to the stage, having that UPK, having multiple links so I can just check you out and just really get a feel for who you are, because that's going to immediately want me to connect with you because I feel like you're already good at communication.
Great. Well, Cece, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah, of
appreciate
course,
it.
of course. Next up, coming to this hot seat, is going to be Bruce Trujillo. Alicia Bruce Trujillo is a music professional from the occupied lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute peoples in what is now called Denver, Colorado. Known professionally as Bruce, she has been working in music and arts organizations since 2006 with a mission to collaborate with communities who are systematically excluded.
You don't have to read all of that. That's so long. You guys got the long one. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's like, this is actually not that long, actually.
Right.
Y'all surprised.
We don't have to go through that. I'm sorry.
With a mission to collaborate with communities who are systematically excluded with a focus on independent and locally made music and art. And as somebody who focuses on independent artists who are local and who have been marginally excluded from spaces, I felt like it was important to say as part of your intro. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Appreciate you.
So you are going to get similar questions, or actually the same questions. But I think it will be great for us to hear from all 5 of your perspectives, because you do come from all different backgrounds and different experiences and things like that. So to start off again, can you describe a little bit about your day-to-day life within your job and within your roles?
So I quit my real job last year, so my day-to-day right now is very strange. I am an independent booking person for different organizations throughout the city and throughout the metro. I am one of the talent buyers for the Underground Music Showcase Discovery team, so I've worked with a couple people in here. I also get to do some radio every now and then. My day-to-day is really strange. I'm opening my venue, so a lot of very boring city admin stuff. It's kind of a roller coaster. Sometimes it's dead. This week has not been dead. It's been very busy with UMS things.
Yeah, that sounds great. And how is it booking with UMS or being a talent buyer for UMS? What has that experience been like for you?
It's really exciting and really lovely. I love working with the Discovery team. I work with 3 other folks, one of which is in here. But we get to hear a lot of stuff. We get to see a lot of different people. My personal mission with booking with UMS is to find folks who maybe haven't performed as much with UMS, maybe 2 or 3 times. There are a couple folks where we're like, yeah, those people are coming back because we know they're going to fill a room. We know that they're going to do a great job. But I'm finding Black and brown, queer, femme, disabled acts specifically that maybe don't get booked in other spaces where it's like, oh no, their music is special and it does belong here. So that's always really exciting for me. And then it's also like, oh, I can build a bigger bill than 2 to 4. It's really like, okay, we're booking like 20 to 25 people. And it is difficult though, because we get so many submissions for UMS. It's hard to be like, these are the ones. This is it, because if we knew we could fill more rooms and we knew people would come out, we just have a finite amount of space. So it's really beautiful and sometimes kind of really difficult to choose who to book.
I can imagine. It seems kind of overwhelming, but fun at the same time.
It's more fun. More fun than overwhelming.
Nice. Okay, that's
for
great.
me personally. That's maybe
good.
not be the case for everyone on the team.
Yeah. And then how has your first job in the music industry kind of led you to where you are now?
My first real job in the music industry was in radio. I have a background in non-commercial radio since 2006. Just because I loved music, and I started in college radio, just putting together really terrible playlists, like all over the place. But then refining that, working at KAFM in Grand Junction, KGNU in Boulder, Open Air and Indy 102.3 through Colorado Public Radio. I love radio so much, and that's also another place to explore folks who maybe haven't been heard, who are looking to get their names out there. My first booking gigs were really DIY, punk rock spaces, and I feel like I still carry a lot of that here into more professional spaces, which may piss off some people, and I'm sorry. But, I want people to be heard. I want people to be paid equitably. I want people to be, it's really kind of that DIY kind of a thing. And so all of that builds up to this space, and I really value having a radio background going into booking. I feel like it's just like a different lens that some talent buyers may not have, and it doesn't make it like better or worse. I just appreciate having kind of that background as a music director and as a DJ to be able to look at lineups and listening to music and submissions.
And I actually just graduated from MSU with my bachelor's in broadcast journalism, so I was running a radio station over there for the last few years. Oh, thank you. So I definitely hear what you mean when you say that. There's something different about it, and it kind of gives you a different lens to look through when it comes to scouting talent and booking shows and things like that.
Right.
Since you have been in the music industry since college radio, so you have seen music, especially in Denver, evolve and kind of change since you've been here. How has your work changed as we've gone through the mixtape blog era to Instagram, to what is now like TikTok fame kind of era?
Yeah, I'm an old lady. I was born in the 1900s, and I don't do TikTok very well. But I appreciate social media being a tool for artists to use, and I find a lot of folks through there, and I think that's a great way to discover folks, especially where it's like, oh, I like this band, so I'm gonna see who they're following, who they're collaborating with. As a person who plays music and who is around a lot of musicians all the time, I hate that folks have to be their own marketing directors now, and they have to create content to be seen. That's my own soapbox that we can talk about some other time. And then, having to filter through all of these different things when you're booking, where it's like, I just want to know what you sound like, and I just want to know how you play. I personally don't like going through a massive amount of links and all that. I just want to get to the meat of it. So good and bad. I think as a fan, it's really great. As a professional, it's become just kind of a pain in the ass, in my opinion. And just knowing how musicians, especially independent musicians and young folks, how many hoops y'all have to jump through just to be seen by a handful of people I don't think that's okay, but that's the world we live in. And it is good to have several resources as well, though, where it's like, okay, I can go to the Instagram and see how they perform. I can check out the EPK. I can check out these different things. So I have mixed feelings about it all.
Yeah. On that same note, do you think that there is some justification to the having to make your own content, be your own media manager kind of thing? Do you think that adds anything to yourself, like to local artists and their development as an artist?
I hope so. I mean, you get to really control the narrative of who you are versus working with a manager who may say, like, this is what I want you to hear. Like, you're really saying, this is who I am, and putting myself out there. I think some people do social media really well, and it's just that those are those types of people. I remember pre-pandemic, like Shannon and the Clams would put up the silliest videos, and it was a lot of fun. But some people aren't, and some people don't like to make that, and some people just don't have time. I think doing social media for myself, for my radio stuff, for my venue, I'm like, I don't have the time. I don't care anymore to try and make these reels or these TikToks or these whatevers for minimal likes. Like, is it really getting out there? I don't know. So I just think it's an extra thing where it's like, if you don't have that skill, if you don't have that talent, if you don't have that drive to make those types of things, it kind of adds to your plate. And I think I hear that it's a stressor for a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. So for you, and having your own venue now and trying to get opportunities to these young artists that you might not get opportunities elsewhere, for those young artists that are applying to be booked at your venue or to perform at your venue, hold space there, what are some red flags for you when it comes to those inquiries?
I don't know if I have very many red flags. I feel like there's just some refinement that can happen within within the email. I think email, like when we get to that, is a 5. Like if that's your first point of contact, it needs to be, I like things to be concise. More than 2 sentences, but have everything organized, have it tell a short narrative. If you're attaching an EPK, that can go into depth a little bit more. So red flags, not necessarily a huge thing unless it's, research where you're submitting to book. If it's totally off, I was booking at Swallow Hill Music for a long time. That's a folk music venue. And so getting like hard rock or hip hop submissions was like, do you even know who we are or what we do? And you obviously don't, so I'm not gonna even, I have other things to pay attention to. Just doing the research for where you're really submitting, I think, is a huge thing.
Since you did mention that email pitch is like a 5 for you, where is EPK fall in there?
EPK, I would say, in radio, I think it's higher. I think maybe like a 3. Like I said, I like things to be concise. So if you have your narrative, if you have some videos, if you have good press photos, please don't send selfies. You know, like a well put together EPK is really worth more than a poorly put together EPK. But I would say like a 3.
Okay, great. What about streaming and streaming numbers, I should say?
For me, that's less important just because the work that I do is working with newer artists, with indie artists. I also want to be, my space is not open just yet, but we do want to be a space for folks to be, it's their first show or within their first year. Like, please bring out the audience, bring people to discover who you are. So if it's, you know, streaming numbers are less important for me, I would say a 2. But you know, when I'm booking larger venues for other organizations, sometimes that does come into play where it's like, oh yeah, we'll get people out here for this if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. So for something like UMS, you would think streaming plays a bigger part?
Also, not necessarily, because I do think that this is going to be, for some folks, this is like their first festival. This may be like one of their first bigger shows, and it's a discovery music festival. There's other members of the team that are looking at larger stream numbers for headliners, but we get to play with folks that are newer to the scene. And then also folks that maybe haven't recorded yet, who haven't put in, who don't have the funds to make recording happen, so they don't have streaming numbers quite yet, but we know they can pack a room. That does happen in the community, and so más o menos.
And we're actually going to move from the scale questions to a different one that I specifically wrote to ask you, actually. And this kind of comes from my own experience as an artist in this city and something that maybe you've heard of and maybe seen in your time here. But for me, as a hip-hop artist, it's been really hard for me and peers who also are in hip-hop to get booked at venues and to get put on bills and things like that. And when we do, it is through a pay-to-play system most of the time, which sucks because no one really wants to have to sell 20 tickets just so that they can perform if they have this art that they want to share, right? But although a lot of times that our peers who are in rock and indie bands and things like that, they have a little bit of an easier time. They may still have to subscribe to the pay-to-play system, but they may have an easier time getting on the bill. How have you seen Denver music scene adapt to give Black and brown artists more opportunities, or even queer artists, just marginalized communities of people, get more opportunities to share their art?
I think this is a really interesting question. Pay-to-play, I think, is some bullshit. Just as, like I said, like, I'm a musician, my partner is a musician, and it's like, no, like, don't invite me to play if I have to pay to do that, or I have to sell a certain amount of tickets. Like, you have a marketing team, you're the venue. Like, there's certain things where it's also like, hi, I need you to market your show coming up in 2 weeks, in a week, in 3 days. Please put it on your Instagram. So please do that if you're playing somewhere. Just say that you're playing, put it up. But you know, it's a necessary evil for some venues. I think it's difficult to sell tickets, especially after quarantine. I don't have an answer for that necessarily. I would love to give everybody a guarantee. I want to give everybody all of the money in the world. But you know, helping venues market your show is absolutely necessary. And to your point about accommodating Black and brown artists, I think the city's getting better. You know, like, I've heard people call Denver White Wakanda, and I think there's a reason for that. But you know, there is a lot more representation coming into the city. There's more people that want to play. There's more people that have like great recordings. Or they have the chops to make it happen. Denver has just been set up, I believe, where it's easier to play rock. Everybody's buddy plays rock. Everybody's buddy plays jam bands. There's like this history throughout the city of music that just works, and or that has worked over the past 50 years. So it's a new era, and I think more venues are paying more attention to hip hop and to these genres that maybe weren't being played in the city 10, 15, 20 years ago. So it's coming up. It's too slow for my liking. That was part of the reason why I left my last job, is trying to get Black and brown artists that played the genre that we were supposed to. Audiences wouldn't come out because they didn't know them, which I was kind of shocked by. But yeah, it's slow to come, but I think it is coming. And I think, you know, eventually if you can put together a killer bill where it's like, you know, we have played these venues, we have done this, we've put in the work, it'll come, and it'll be less of a pay to play and more of a, we can give you this guarantee.
Great. Thank you for your time, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah. Coming up next, we have Ricky Aston. Give it up for Ricky. How are you doing today?
Is this on?
Yeah, it should be on.
Put me like after the really amazing speaker radio personality. Thank you so much.
So quick introduction for you. Hailing from Detroit and an alum of Michigan State University, Ricky Aston has made a near 20-year career out of building up artists in the live music spaces of Denver. After working for indie promoter Soda Jerk Presents, she became a talent buyer for Live Nation Rockies in 2014 and has since retained the role. Ricky works to promote artists across the Rocky Mountains' many venues and amphitheaters, in addition to overseeing Live Nation's growing club and small theater business. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with all of that going on, you working for these different entities and doing all these big shows, what does your day-to-day look like?
A lot of emails, a lot of emails. It's not the most glamorous job that everybody thinks it is. It's a lot sitting around from 10 to 6 or 7, Monday through Friday, answering all of those emails, booking shows, all that stuff. And then having to go out at night and see the show. So, you know, it's a lot of hours.
Nice. And what was your first job ever in the music? Was it what I mentioned, or was it something else that we might not have gotten?
My first internship was for a company that was more of a middleman at Michigan State. I don't know if they exist anymore, but regardless, it kind of got me the taste of like the live music side of things. Like I didn't know this was a job you could have. So I always knew I wanted to work in music. That was never a thing. I just like wanted to figure out how to go to shows for free, and this was a way, right? So, and then I figured out like, oh, like I'm actually good at this, and like, but it was, we booked shows for other people, just similar to like how Bruce was just talking about how she's got groups and stuff like that she books stuff for. That was similar. We did it for Michigan State University, for Milwaukee Summerfest, for the Michigan State Fair, things like that. And this is a guy who used to be a promoter, who used his relationships and did that full time on his own. And then I did get my first job out of college at Soda Jerk, which is, that was a long time ago now. So that was my first paying gig. So
In that Michigan State job, was that solely student focused, or was that just local acts?
no, it was everywhere. It was big acts. We would book, you know, Journey for the Milwaukee Summerfest, or
Oh,
we'd
wow,
book like,
okay.
and so I kind of like, he did it all, and you know, it was just a bunch of interns working there, and he had like one guy, but it was a very small business, but I learned a lot, and I learned like, that's where I learned about relationships and communication. So.
And with this experience in the music industry, how have you seen it change with social media and all the different trends and things?
It's wild. I mean, like, you know, like when I first started doing marketing for Soda Jerk, let's just say like Facebook ads were king, and like, you know, Meta is still a thing, obviously, but like there was none of the other stuff like at all. Like that was the only like social media anything, and you did a lot of ads on there, but like it's so different now. I mean, obviously Denver in general, this is the only market that I've ever worked in, like, you know, like consistently for my whole career, 16 years now. And I mean, it's blown up. It's like, it's insane, obviously. Like there's more venues, there's more people, there's more shows, there's more artists, and across like every city is feeling that, I think, but Denver in particular had a huge boom, as everybody knows, so.
Do you see Live Nation adapting to that system and these changes at all?
Yeah, I mean, we've
specifically?
grown exponentially since I started 10 years ago. I mean, we were doing 200 shows in the market, mostly big stuff, not a lot of clubs. We didn't have a lot of that stuff. You know, we bought my old company, which was like a whole weird thing that happened in my life. And then, and there was also, and then, you know, now we're doing like, you know, 600-700 shows a year in the market, I think. So
Great,
hard
great.
to keep track these days.
Yeah. How often are, you know, as someone that's working for a entity as big as Live Nation, obviously that's very different from like Two Moons, who's a local venue. Are you working with more booking agents than personal artists, or do you still get inquiries from artists themselves?
Oh,
who are
I get
reaching out?
inquiries from artists themselves all the time. Do I work mostly with booking agents? Yes. I'm sad to say that I don't book like a ton of local bands anymore. It's just like, it's a grind and I don't have as much time as I'd like to, but I still try to do favors for my friends and, you know, book as many, or if I find somebody I really like, I always reach out and I'm like, cool, let me help you, you know? But it's definitely like, mostly with agents at this point, like 95%, so.
Yeah. And for those local artists that, you know, you might be willing to give a chance and try and help out, how does it usually work and how do they usually build that rapport with you?
Well, and I did a lot of local booking for a really long time, so it's not to say that I haven't done it, it's just not recently, and there's other people in my office who handle a lot more of it. But, sorry, what was the question?
How easy, or I guess maybe how difficult, how easy is it? How do they build rapport with someone that's in your position?
I'm a fan of the short and sweet, like, and please, please, please check your spelling and your grammar. But, you know, like, if you make sense in an email, I'm gonna read it. If you don't, I'm still gonna respond to you and say thank you, but I can't, or whatever it is, because I answer every email to like a fault. It bogs me down a lot of days, but I just feel like I would want somebody to say something to me, so I always respond, even if it's a no. But I think the more like concise, and do not write me like a summary of every single thing you've done. Like, I'm gonna read the 3 bullet points that they're at the top, and if it's spelled correctly and you get my name right, I'm really happy with it. I cannot tell you how many times people have misspelled my name or call me like, hey dude, because I get a lot of hey mans and hey dudes.
It's a very informal industry, so yeah, that makes sense.
For sure.
On a scale of 1 to 5, for something that's as big as Live Nation, these bigger venues, these bigger events, how important are things like Spotify plays versus when you're booking for like a small club or something?
I mean, like for the national artists, certainly, like I can look at that and kind of tell most of the time, like at least how many people you're gonna do, give or take. Obviously, there's always anomalies in every end. Like maybe you're not huge on Spotify, but you're really big on TikTok, and I don't have a TikTok, so maybe I don't see that. But like maybe I leave that to the young people in my office who tell me all the cool stuff. But you know, I think on the local level, it's like nobody really has, like, if you have 1 million plays on a song, I'm definitely gonna notice that. Or something like Cheap Perfume, great, they have like 3 million plays on their biggest song. That's awesome, they're playing the main stage at the UMS. But that's not the norm, it's the outlier, you know? So like, I'm not looking at that, I'm probably gonna listen to your music or something, but I'm not gonna look and see how many like plays you have like that much, unless it's like 2. And then I know it's probably your first show, so, or two followers or whatever it is. So
Yeah, for sure. What about EPKs for both
No,
of those situations?
leave me alone. I don't want one.
No,
Nope.
not at all.
Nope, I will never open one. Do not even bother
Really?
with me.
Okay.
Like, put it all in the quick body of the email. Like, I want your 5 sentences. What show do you want to play? What are you asking me for? Don't say I want to play every single show. Like, that's the most annoying thing
fair.
ever. Like, and don't send me a list of half of my calendar either, because apparently you don't know what you sound like if you do that. So it's like, and if you don't know who you sound like, I'm not going to take the time to find out either. So
That's fair. What about these email pitches, cold pitches, things like that?
sorry, what pitches?
Email pitches.
Yeah, just the same thing. Like that's
Just
fine,
as-
great, concise. Put a few of your links in there so I can find you easily. Yeah, like tell me what you're asking for. And the biggest thing, like, don't tell me, like, if you ever need a metal band to play this, like, yes, I will eventually need a metal band, and I'll put you in this folder, and then somebody's gonna look at it sometime, but, like, ask me specifically, because I'll put it in that show folder, and when I need somebody, I'll go and look, because it's not always up to me. Everybody thinks, like, oh, you don't book a lot of local bands. It's like, dude, like, they come with a package of 5 people. Like, I can't put a 6 band on unless they ask me to, or it's like the artist has a friend in town, and they want to put that person on, or, like, I will tell you that 95% of the time it is not up to me who I put on the show, if they even ask for a local, or even if we're allowed to have one, you know? So it's like, it's unfortunate, because I think it used to kind of be more, like, it definitely used to be like, cool, can you add 3 locals to this 1 band bill? But now there are so many artists who just want to tour and want to go out, that people are taking their friends or taking their label mates, or they're taking this or that, you know, and they're willing to go out for the $250 a night. and sell merch and what have you, and like versus like paying a local, you know, the same amount of money or whatever to like, which I think is kind of stupid, because I think that sometimes I would rather have the local who's going to be out and selling tickets and stuff and working hard and like promoting the show like locally versus the band that nobody's ever heard of, like, to be, if I'm being honest. So
Yeah, and then you mentioned that you aren't usually the one that's getting people put on these bills, but you are the one that's like receiving the inquiries and things like that. So
Yeah.
how does that process work?
sometimes, I mean, sometimes I am, like, if somebody hits me up and I'm like, I happen to have, like, it just happened today where somebody was like, do you want to find a local for this? It was actually a Live Nation tour, and they're adding a local on every show, which is great. And they were like, you know, do you have somebody? But somebody had just emailed me about the show, so it was great. So I just responded to them, and then of course I couldn't do it anymore. But it was just like, but a lot of times I'll be like, to like one of our booking coordinators or something. They have like, I ask them to like, they're younger than me, they're cooler than me, they have their finger on the pulse. You know what I mean? To like, you know, I'm like, hey, go through the list of all the people that have hit us up, and can you like send me 3 ideas, and I'll send them to the agent or whatever. And that's the other thing, is we have to submit everything. 99% that come back, they're like, oh, just add who you think is best. But for some reason they want to hear them, and it's like annoying, but.
And then are there any red flags that might lead you to not book a band or put them in that folder for that event?
I think
besides
I already
the,
mentioned them, which is the don't send me half of my calendar submitting, like what, like all the time. It just, people are this band and this, like, can I open for any of these? And they're so also different. And I'm like, which one do you really fit on? But I like, cool, I'll put this in here. And then like, if I need somebody later, I'll like go look. So, and then, but as for like local shows, like come to me with a bill, come to me with like, hey, these bands have all played here, like this, you know, they played Cervantes, or they played the Larimer Lounge, or they played wherever, and I want to know about that. And like, it's way easier for me to be like, you know, they're like, we'll take any weekend in like these 5 months of the year or something, and then, you know, I'll work through it, and I'll be like, cool, I'll put the whole on the calendar, and I'll try to get you a show like when we have something that's open.
Great.
So.
And then, do you have anything else that you would like to share about Live Nation and about your work before you head out?
Live Nation gets a bad rap. Live Nation gets a bad rap, but they treat me really well, and they're a really great company to work for. So, but yeah, that's about it. So.
Thank you for your time, Ricky. Yeah. Next up to the stage, we have Andy Thomas. Give it up for Andy. Andy was born in Denver, raised in the foothills of Golden, and is a musician, podcaster, journalist, novelist, and activist. Dog, you have more hats than I do. He was performed
You forgot to put amateur before all those.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Sub-amateur, yeah.
I'll just go ahead and scratch all of that
Yeah,
out.
thank
real
you,
quick. And you've performed in 11 different countries across the world. Congrats to you for that. Past projects include helping to start a Legal Pete's Starving Artist Program, coordinating 2 years in the Denver Music Summit, and facilitating West Staff's I'm Tour program, which gave grant subsidies to independent young touring artists. As the current deputy director of Levitt Pavilion, Andy has worked with the Ruby Hill community to ensure the venue is a safe and inclusive space for all. Andy, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And I want to go ahead and start with, since you're the deputy director of a venue, one of like Denver's biggest venues, I think, in the city. How important, I want to start with scaling questions with you. How important are things like EPKs for artists that are looking to be booked at that venue?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways it's important depending on the type of show we're trying to book. So like we look at the type of shows we book in kind of 3 different buckets. We're always dealing in emerging artists. We want to book touring bands. We want to book bands that maybe someday end up at Red Rocks, someday end up at the Mission Ballroom. So it's important for us to see that bands have some legacy and are kind of some fan base and are coming through in that way. So we do look at things like Spotify plays and popularity and tour history. But we also, you know, we look at Levitt as a cultural facility. So we want to book, like if we're booking Gamelan, Tunis, Makar, like Tunisian music, I don't care how many Spotify plays it has. That's part of like our programming. That's an important part of Levitt. Bringing in different communities, I don't want that to be the gate. I don't want to gatekeep a community that maybe doesn't use Spotify, you know, like Tunisian music, African music. These things don't matter to me when we see that. We're trying to program our venue in a way that brings in different communities. So in that regard, like EPKs, Spotify doesn't really matter to us as much. And then when we're working on like, you know, the big shows where we want to fill the venue, we are 6,500 capacity venue. So, you know, and that's when we work with people like Scott and Ricky when they come and rent the venue on behalf of Live Nation and AEG. Like, yeah, those bands have to have millions of plays. And we rely on our partners to make sure that like they know how big the venue is, and we're trying to pack the venue as much as we can. So yeah, we look at it in a lot of different ways, but it's all part of our programming as a nonprofit.
Great. And as deputy director of Levitt, what does your day-to-day look like? What are
Yeah,
your
it's
job
pretty vast. I mean,
responsibilities?
I'm probably the only one in this panel that's not a talent buyer, but I tell our talent buyer what to do. So that's part of me managing him. It's part of me managing our production staff. I manage our bar. So like, it's I thought that was me getting off the stage. I was like, man, I got roped out of here real quick. You know, so it's pretty, you know, I do all of our operations, so that means managing all our staff, and we're a city-owned venue. So I look at like I'm operating the building on behalf of the city. So it's a lot of conversations with city officials. We're part of a national network of amphitheaters. There's a foundation under us, so there's some bureaucracy on that end and kind of, you know, playing that nonprofit game. So being a nonprofit music venue, my day-to-day is a lot different because I still consider myself an arts administrator more than I probably do in the music business. I still don't love the music business as a general rule. Like as an old musician, like the term music business still kind of makes me feel gross. So I still look at it like I'm in the arts. So a lot of things to make sure that Levitt is viewed as a community center and an arts facility is kind of how I look at my job.
Great. And with community being like your biggest point at Levitt, but still having to work with like talent buyers and things like that for these bigger shows, how do local artists get booked on these national acts? And is that more of like your expertise, or do you leave that to somebody else kind of thing?
Sure, yeah, so we have a talent buyer. So basically how Levitt works is we book 40 to 50 free shows every year, and those artists that we book to headline are national and international acts. And to Ricky's point, like sometimes there's an opportunity for a local artist to open. That's less and less than it used to be. But a lot of times it's a single artist coming through, and that's the time once we book all those headlining acts, we start looking at local artists if there's an opportunity. Then we start to submit those again. You got to submit into managements and agents, and sometimes those get on. But like a lot of those shows at Levitt do have local openers, so we really pride ourselves on making sure that like, especially if an act, I think we didn't talk about that. If an act is doing well on their own and there's going to be 6,000 people at Levitt, that's the time for maybe to us to take a chance on a local artist that doesn't bring on a lot of people because the bill's set, it's going to do great. So why not add someone who you just think is great? And that's when that comes down to like we talk a lot about Spotify plays and EPKs and all these things. Like they're all things that enhance an artist's popularity, but like you got to be good at the end of the day. Like people forget about that sometimes. Like you can't trick. We're not. All of us are smart. Everyone in this room is smart. You can't like trick someone to be like, well, this band sounds bad, but we should book them because they have 1 million plays on Spotify. Like that, being a kick-ass band along with 1 million plays on Spotify is going to get you very far. But like you can't trick people who just like know at the end of the day you don't put the time in to write good songs. You know, and for bands and artists that take too much time to like promote themselves without sitting down and playing your instrument and writing a kick-ass song, like I don't want to book that band. Like I'm not interested in it. Like, and I hope the industry starts to trend that way. I think all of us are music fans at the end of the day, so we don't book exactly what we love, but we book bands that we know are good and someone's going to really love.
And since we are running low on time, I'm sorry to cut you short on time
No
as
worries,
well, Andy.
Scott, come on. That's
Yeah,
what always
so I
happens
do
when you
want to bring
headline.
Scott back up to the stage. Scott Merrill? Morrill, sorry. Give it up for Scott. And to keep your bio pretty short, just to make sure I do give you some time to answer these questions. You've been in the music industry for 20 years as a talent buyer and venue owner in Denver. You opened Cervantes Masterpiece, legendary, as well as Cervantes Other Side, also legendary. Additionally, you've served as a talent buyer for Rise Music Festival, Sonic Bloom, many more, and currently also under AEG Rocky Mountains. So as I do want to talk about this first question from both sides of that, from as the owner and talent buyer for Cervantes, as well as in your new role as AG. What does that day-to-day job kind of look like for you?
My day-to-day is pretty different every day. I kind of just take what's coming at me, but really my primary job is to book talent and to make sure Cervantes has the best shows on the calendar. And so I kind of oversee the calendar, you know, book shows, and then it's really just about like, you know, as a talent buyer, it's so constant because you're working with, you know, a certain amount of artists, say 200 artists. And after an artist finishes one show, you have to be thinking about what are they doing for the next show after that, and the next show after that, and you're talking with the agents and the managers about the strategy and the plan so they can get as big as they can as fast as they can. So that's a primary part of my job. And then overseeing Cervantes. Cervantes has gotten, it's kind of like a finely oiled machine at this point, which is nice that I don't have to like hold everyone's hands. Everyone does like such an amazing job there that I can kind of oversee it, but every once in a while, like, you know, there'll be staff issues or something we have to do, and so I'll be responsible to make sure that everything is running smoothly.
Great. And with Cervantes being like this, really like household name as like a local venue here in Denver, what is it like building rapport with local artists and working with local artists and getting them into your venues?
I love the local scene so much and the local artists. It's like one of my favorite parts about my job. So it's just kind of a constant rotation of locals that play at Cervantes a lot and the new ones that are coming in. And so, you know, when we need an opener for something, we'll kind of think about who would be best, but then we also have, you know, the submissions, and the squeaky wheel does get the oil a lot of times. So there's like, when people are persistent and email me all the time saying, get me on this, I do listen to them. And that to me, persistence is huge. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, that does. That's a great answer. Yeah, definitely. And speaking of persistence, is when an artist is kind of not in that vein, or they may give you limited materials, they kind of give you limited details about what they really want. They're kind of vague.
Yeah.
Instead of being persistent and being like, hey, I'm really adamant about this. Is that more of like a red flag for you?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, them being organized, them being experienced. One of my biggest things that I just do right away is just look for a live video, because I can usually watch 15 seconds of a live video and know how good somebody is and how much potential they have. So having a good live video, if you're local, is huge. Even if it's your friend recording you in your bedroom, if it's good sound quality, and professionally done, and you put some work into it, that goes a long way.
Solid. Did want to ask you the same question that I asked for Levitt. How do local bands get to? How are local acts able to get put on bills for national acts at places like Cervantes?
It's kind of like I was saying. There's a certain amount of bands that are reaching out to us, like asking to get on bills, and then there's also a pool of locals that we kind of go to that are regulars at Cervantes or AG venues. So combination of the two, but I don't know. I think when a band does start getting representation, I do feel like that's a big step. Like, that kind of says something that someone else is willing to invest their time into this band. Because if you ask a lot of managers and agents, they're like, they know what kind of responsibility it is when you take on a band. So they got to be pretty into what they're doing. So to me, that says a lot when somebody, even if it's like a local manager or agent, like, I'm like, okay, these guys are starting to do something here. So yeah.
And speaking of local agents and like local acts, what would you say if you give me like a percentage of how often it is that you're working with the local artist themselves, like on a personal basis, versus them having a manager or like a booking agent?
For locals in particular, or
Yeah, for locals in particular.
if I had to guess, I'd say probably like 75% maybe don't have an agent or manager.
Do you think that makes it easier to get to know the artists and to connect with them and get to know their music?
Yeah, and I really enjoy getting to know the artists, and like when I do get to book them directly for a while, and then a lot of times I'll help them find a manager, an agent, and I really enjoy that process too. But it's fun to watch them go from booking themselves to growing and starting to get representation, and then I get to help them kind of grow up through the venues is like one of my favorite parts about my job, for sure.
Great. And then as we're sitting here going to close with our last question, is there any advice that you would give to young artists looking to perform at spaces like Cervantes and get put on national acts and things like that?
Play really good music. No, I mean, obviously, like, it is so important. Focus on your craft and, like, practice and, like, give it everything you got and, you know, be persistent and make good content and just work your ass off. It's fucking hard. But, I mean, it's very rewarding when it does work. So there's a reason that everybody's trying to do it. And yeah, it's hard. It's such a hard thing. But when it does work, it's one of the best things in the world. So yeah, it makes it really fun.
Nice. Well, Scott, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
I really
sure.
appreciate it. Yeah. And I do want to give a final round of applause to all of our panelists that came up here. Thank you guys for your time. And thank you for kicking off UMS Impact Days with a fire session. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your UMS weekend. And I hope that you guys get some well-deserved rest if you did work hard this week to put this event on. And if you're here to enjoy it, hey, and enjoy it to the fullest. Once again, I'm Xavier Goche. Shout out to UMS. Shout out to Youth on Record. And yeah, we'll be here all weekend. So thank you guys.